Two communities, same county, same price range, and almost every family I talk to who's narrowing in on Pasco County ends up stuck between these two. So today we're gonna go head to head, Starkey Ranch versus Bexley. We're talking about amenities, lifestyle, schools, the fees, commute times, all of it. And at the end, I'm gonna give you a simple framework that tells you exactly which one fits your family, your ideal lifestyle with no fluff, so let's go. And just some quick context before we jump in. My name is Juan, Alcalá, and a little over 7 years ago, my wife Kate and I packed up our family of 5, moved 1,200 miles south here to the Tampa Bay area, and have been loving it ever since. We've also helped over 200 families relocate and move all over Tampa Bay area. And in Pasco County, where these two communities come up all the time. And here's what I keep seeing. Families do their research, they narrow it down to the master plan communities in Pasco County, and they land on these two as their finalists. And then they get stuck because on paper, these communities look almost identical. I mean, they are in the same general price range, both are in Pasco County, both have on-site schools, both have pools and trails, and all the amenities a master plan community is supposed to have. But here's what I want to show you today. They're not the same. They attract different types of people, and which one is right for you comes down to something that most comparison videos skip entirely. And I'll get to that, but first, let's do the head-to-head that you actually came here for. So before I go diving into the amenities, I want to give you a quick 30,000 foot view, because these communities do have a different soul, if you will, and they live differently. And understanding that makes everything else make sense. Starting with Starkey Ranch, it's really built around nature. It sits right next to the J.B. Starkey Wilderness Preserve, one of the largest publicly owned natural areas in the entire Tampa Bay area. The community has over 20 miles of trails that connect directly to that preserve. There's a kayak launch, there's a community garden, there's even a branch of the Pasco County Library right inside of the neighborhood. The vibe here is we love being active and we love being outdoors, and this really feels serene. It's quieter, it's got a more mature tree canopy, which I know a lot of people want an established feel, even in new developments. And if your family's version of Saturday involves bikes, trails, kayaks, and ending up in the community garden, Starkey Ranch was really designed with you in mind. Now, Bexley, on the other hand, this is built around the Bexley Club, and there's a ton to do here. You've got a BMX pump park, there's a dog park, there is a restaurant inside of the community there, you've got a fitness center, you've got a game room, you've got multiple pools. There is so much going on, miles of trails. There's a ton of energy here, and it feels just more social overall. There's events and a lot of things happening, and that doesn't even include the Bexley Hub, which is restaurants, outdoor space. There's even more on the way into the community. And if your family's version of Saturday involves the kids at the pool while you grab a coffee or run into your neighbors, Bexley was really designed with you in mind. Neither is better, they're just different personalities. So when I walk you through the amenities now, keep that in mind, because the right amenities depend entirely on which personality you are. So continuing on with the amenities, let's actually compare the two. Both communities have pools. Starkey Ranch has resort-style pools spread across different villages within the community itself. So you're usually close to one no matter where you live. Bexley's pools are found at their clubhouse, and it's a significantly larger footprint and has way more right there on site. If your kids want a lazy river, that's the Bexley thing. Now, when it comes to trails and outdoor access, this is where Starkey Ranch is going to win, at least in my mind. And it's not even close. Over 20 miles of connected trails feeding directly into the Wilderness Preserve. I mean, you can literally take a kayak out from your neighborhood. You can walk for hours and feel like you're nowhere near suburban Tampa. Bexley has trails too, and really good ones as a matter of fact, but they're community trails, not wilderness access. And there's a huge difference if you're really into outdoor adventures with the family. And if you think about the detail that's really gonna tell you everything, Starkey Ranch has a Pasco County library built right inside of the community, and a community garden with plots of land that you can actually reserve to grow your own vegetables. These are huge things on paper, but they tell you something about the kind of community that they're trying to build. You know, there's a certain kind of person who's drawn to this type of thing. They're probably a little bit nerdy like myself, and I love it. When it comes to social programming, Bexley is going to win here. You've got the Twisted Sprocket Cafe and a food truck park at the hub that regularly drives community events, movie nights, seasonal events, that kind of thing. And if you want a built-in social calendar and neighbors that you can actually run into, the way that Bexley is laid out really kind of helps facilitate that. When it comes to fitness, both have great fitness centers. Bexley's gym is a little bit larger and probably has more equipment. A lot of people who live in Starkey Ranch tend to supplement with trails more than the gym, which tracks for the personality we've talked about. And here's a way to kind of summarize all of this. You know, if you want resort style amenities with a social scene, Bexley is going to have the edge. If you want access to real nature, trails, and a quieter, more self-directed lifestyle, Starkey Ranch is probably going to be in a league to its own. Now let's talk about what it actually costs to live here, because these two communities are not the same price, and the gap between them is actually meaningful for anyone looking in that $650,000 to $850,000 range. So let's get into what's actually selling right now and what you can expect to pay in fees on top of that. And we're going to deal with some real numbers here because I pulled the recent sales for both communities over the last 30 days, and here's what the market actually looks like right now. When it comes to Starkey Ranch, single family homes have been selling in the roughly $550,000 to $900,000 range over the last 30 days for a typical 3 to 5 bedroom home. The median sales price over the last 12 months lands in around $668,000 to $700,000. And that could depend on which data source you're looking at, but an average sold price on the MLS that I have access to says it's closer to $752,000. Difference between median and average, of course. And knowing how much people love this community, there's a really good buying opportunity right now. Prices are down about 6% year over year. And that's because the market in Tampa Bay has softened overall. We're not having as many people move into the state that have in the past. We are still seeing an increase in population, of course, but nowhere near to the craziness we had during COVID. And homes are sitting a lot longer. They're sitting from roughly 65 to 90 days on average before they sell. And if you're a buyer, that's actually really good information. And what it tells you is there's a lot of negotiation room that didn't exist 2 years ago. Now in Bexley, this is where things tend to get interesting. Single family homes in Bexley have been selling for around $450,000 to $750,000 range for a typical 3 to 4 bedroom home. The median sales price over the last 12 months there has been around $550,000 to $560,000, which is definitely a lot lower than Starkey Ranch. And average days on market is about 71. And homes are taking about 71 days on average to sell, and they're down 9 to 11% year over year. Another really good opportunity here inside of Bexley. So what does that mean for you? If your budget is $700,000, that money goes further in Bexley than it's gonna go in Starkey Ranch. In Bexley, $700,000 gets you a larger home, more upgrades, probably a greater lot premium. In Starkey Ranch, $700,000 is gonna put you right in that middle area. It's gonna get you a solid home, but not a standout one. And trust me, that's not a knock on Starkey Ranch. That means their values are holding higher. You know, it's just the math, and you deserve to know it. So now let's add in the fees, because both communities have a CDD fee, which is known as a Community Development District fee. That's where they borrow money to build the infrastructure of these master plan communities. And then you layered on top of that the HOA fees. You know, quick explanation, if you're coming from out of state, a CDD is how Florida finances the roads, utilities, and amenity infrastructure in a master plan community. I've made an entire video on this. As a matter of fact, I had it last week. I'll make sure that we pin it in the description down below. And the cost of building the infrastructure passes directly onto the homeowner and shows up on your property tax bill every single year, and not as a separate monthly payment. So when you're calculating the true monthly cost, this is going to matter to you. And what I can tell you is that in both of these communities, you're typically looking at a combined CDD and HOA fee in the range of $3,000 to $6,000 a year, depending on your specific lot and whether the CDD bond has been paid down or not, because the homeowner can do that. And that's real money, and it's one of the first things I walk clients through before we fall in love with any specific property or community. And I know not everyone loves these fees, but if you think about what they actually bring you, right? What are you getting for that $4,000 to $5,000 on average a year? Well, you're getting maintained amenities, these pools, these parks, these fitness centers, the restaurant, the reserves for community repairs when they're needed. We're talking about roads and sidewalks, and some of these communities have bridges when they cross over water, so that's something to keep in mind. And in most cases, you actually have much better insurance rates in these master plan developments that are further away from the coast. And that last part matters a lot right now, especially in the state of Florida. We see very affordable rates in new development communities that are a little bit away from the coast. And the bottom line on pricing is both communities have softened. We're talking about down 6% in one and down 9 to 10% in the other. Both offer real negotiation room for buyers in 2026, and Bexley comes in at a lower median price point, which really gives you more options with your budget. You can be more flexible, so keep that in mind as you compare the two. Now moving on to the schools and commute times, because for families I work with, this section either confirms the decision or completely changes it. So let's get into what you really need to know. Both communities have on-site schools built into the neighborhood, which is awesome. And that's a big deal and something you won't find everywhere in Pasco County. Starkey Ranch has the Starkey Ranch K-8 school right inside of the community. It's really been well recognized since it opened, and having a K-8 school on site means your kids can walk or bike to school for most of the elementary and middle school years, which is incredible. There aren't that many places in the country you can actually do that anymore. And that's a huge quality of life thing for a lot of families. Bexley has Bexley Elementary on site. For middle school and high school students, they feed into Charles Rush Middle and Sun Lake High School. And for families who are relocating from the Northeast or the Midwest, there's something I always like to explain. Florida is a school of choice state. You're not locked into any zone schools. Now, these communities have really high rated schools, which is great, but you can also apply for charter school, magnet schools, and STEM schools alongside of the public schools outside of your zip code. And this is really different from how it works in areas like New York, New Jersey, the Midwest where I came from. And once you understand it, it's actually a good thing, and it gives you a ton of educational options. So build your decision around the community first. The school situation in both of these neighborhoods is strong, and you have more flexibility than you probably even realize when it comes to education options. All right, Juan, but what about the commute? Well, if you're not one of the lucky ones who is able to work remote, both communities are in Pasco County, which means Tampa commutes are real. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It can be a long time depending on where you live. From Bexley, you're talking about using the Suncoast Parkway, south towards the Veteran Expressway, which connects you to West Tampa, then the airport and downtown. And that corridor is genuinely pretty decent. On a normal morning, you're gonna be looking at anywhere from 40 to 50 minutes to downtown Tampa, depending on exactly where you're headed. Now, if you leave earlier, you can be down there as little as 35 minutes. If you are right in the heat of it, it might take you almost an hour to do that. There are tolls, so that's something to factor in your monthly budget, but they're not crazy expensive, so just keep that in mind. Starkey Ranch sits slightly further west, depending on where you work in Tampa. You're gonna add another 5 to 15 minutes to that. The trade-off is you feel a little bit more removed from the city, which is some people are really gonna love, and others are probably gonna find it a little bit frustrating. So here's my honest take on commute times. If you're remote or hybrid and commuting 1 or 2 days a week, the difference is basically irrelevant. It's not gonna bother you at all. And if you're in the car 5 days a week and you have to make it to South Tampa, that delta is gonna start to add up and it's going to start to frustrate you. So make sure you know your situation before walking into that. If you're working on the northwest side of Tampa, it's not gonna be a big deal. You're gonna be looking at 30 to 40 minutes every single day to get into work, where there is a lot of commerce up there. There is a lot of corporate jobs up there. So that might be where you're located to. If you're gonna get put on the east side of Tampa, we need to have an entirely different conversation, because these communities probably aren't going to be for you. You're gonna be looking at areas like Fishhawk, Lithia, maybe even Parrish, depending on where you're gonna end up. All right, so here's the part I promised at the beginning. It's the actual decision framework. You could walk away knowing everything I just told you and still be stuck. So I'm gonna give you the 4 questions that actually determine which community is probably gonna be the right decision for you and your family. And I like to call this the 5-year from now test. Think of it this way: where do I picture my family in 5 years from now? And which one of these communities sets that lifestyle up the best? And there's 4 questions, and what I would do is answer them with your spouse tonight. So question 1 is, where does your family actually spend time? Not, we like being outside. I mean more specific. Are you hiking, biking, kayaking? Are you poolside? Are you planning on going to the beach all the time? Are you going to drive all the way to Clearwater from there? You know, are you into meeting neighbors? Are you going to community events? One of these answers points you to Starkey Ranch. The other is going to point you to Bexley. Question 2, how much do you value built-in community versus self-directed lifestyle? Some families move into a master plan community and want the social scene. They want the events, the neighbors, a hub where people naturally gather. Others want the option of community, but mostly want to do their own thing in a well-maintained environment. Bexley is going to be better for the more social type, and Starkey Ranch is going to be better for the more laid back, want to do my own thing. Question 3, do you have school-aged kids right now? If the answer is yes, the on-site K-8 at Starkey Ranch is a real quality of life advantage over Bexley's elementary only option. If your kids are older, or if you don't have kids, this is going to matter a lot less. But think about it this way, both communities hold their value in part because of the school situation. Question 4, what's my actual commute going to look like? Make sure you're honest with yourself here. You don't want to rely on hope. You really want to make sure you're doing your homework. If you have more questions about this, do not hesitate to reach out to me and the team. We will definitely give you the insight on how long it's going to take you to get anywhere in the area. And that's important to know if you're going to have real windshield time when it comes to living in the area, because the reality is Bexley is going to be closer to the Suncoast Parkway, and then Bexley is going to give you another 5 to 10 minutes on that drive time in real life scenarios. So make sure you take the time to answer those 4 questions. I promise you it will help you identify which community is going to be the right one for you. All right, so here's what I want you to take away from this video. Starkey Ranch and Bexley are both really desirable and great communities. Either one is going to be a great place to raise a family, but they're not the same. And picking the wrong one because you're focused on square footage instead of the lifestyle fit is a mistake that I see way too many families make. And there's one more thing worth saying. Both of these community home prices have softened over the past year. Prices are down, homes are sitting on the market longer, and home buyers have more leverage than they've had in a while. And that's the honest reality of living in Tampa Bay right now. And for a family making a long-term move, this is actually good news. Because if you're trying to be a good steward of your finances, it's not just about getting the best price per square foot, it's about buying in a community that actually fits your family's needs and lifestyle. And if you really want to go deep about your specific situation and which one of these communities is going to be right for you and your family, don't hesitate to reach out to me and the team. All of our contact information is down below. Heck, there's even a link to my calendar so you can schedule a time that is most convenient for you. I'll pull up Zoom, we'll walk through the area, we'll talk about real drive times, we'll talk about that commute, we'll talk about amenities, we'll talk about the expenses, and we'll really help you understand what this community is all about. And if you want to go deeper about CDDs, I made that video. I'm going to put that in the description down below as well. Make sure you check that out because that'll give you a lot more insight on what that community development district fee actually means. YouTube's going to put 2 more videos up here that are going to help you with your decision. And as always, until next time, go out and live that Tampa life.
Thank you.